It's that time again. Let's talk about making a purchase on a home. How do you go about that? It's the real estate show. Welcome to the Real Estate Show. My name's Rick Naples. I'm the owner-broker of Zone Realty LLC. You zone your home. I've been a broker for a number of years, and I've also been a realtor for a lot of years. And I've done a lot of transactions. And one of the most nerve-wracking transactions is getting the buyer and making the offer on the home to which they want to buy. Now, there's a lot that's involved in doing that. It's not like you just willy-nilly throw out a number someplace, right? You have to give a lot of thought as to what that offer's going to be. I'm always talking on the Real Estate Show about the importance of working with a realtor, because realtors are going to supply you, the buyer, with a market analysis so that you know how much to offer on that home. Now, yes, the seller has a listing agent, or maybe they're selling on their own, and there's a price on the house. This house, we're selling it for this amount. Well, that amount that they're looking to sell the home for may have some things involved in it. Let's peel back the covers on that just a little bit. The price on the home has been set at that price for a number of different reasons. First, the seller needs to get a certain amount of monies when they sell their home in order to accomplish the next thing they want to do. You know, they may have mortgages to pay off, debt to pay off, they may be purchasing another property, whatever the reason is. That number wasn't just pulled out of the sky somewhere. There's a lot of thought that goes into that. If they've hired a realtor who's done a market analysis on the home, that realtor has looked at comparable homes in the area, has looked at homes that are on the market now similar to the home that's being marketed. They've looked at what's closed recently, and they've take all those numbers and all that analysis and what the seller needs to get, and they've put it together, and they've come up with how to price the home competitively to the market. So that's just a little bit of an insight on how the seller goes about pricing their home. Now, as a buyer, that's your beginning point. You need to make a decision as to whether the home is worth that. Do you want to pay that for the home? Or do you want to offer less? Do you want to offer more? What's involved in the offering agreement? What's your risk? How much money do I put down? What's my mortgage payment going to be? All these questions start to come into play once you found the home that you want to make an offer on. Now, let's look deeper into making that offer. First of all, there's what's called a purchase and sale contract. That purchase and sale contract is going to give you all of the terms and all the things that you're looking for the seller to agree to and accept when you're purchasing that home. It's not just what you're offering. There's so much that goes involved in it. And it means absolutely nothing. I want to warn the buyers out there, making an offer means nothing. It does not become a deal unless the seller accepts the offer and actually signs the purchase and sale agreement, so that now you have a binding contract between the buyer and the seller. Just making the offer does not constitute that you're going to get the home. I've told the story that in the state of Connecticut, based on realtor guidelines and basically the National Code of Ethics and so on and so forth, a realtor must present to the seller any offers that are made on the home. And this includes verbal offers. I could be a realtor and I could be fussing around with a writer on the sign on the front of the home that I put up for sale for the seller. And someone can drive by and say, hey, how much is that house? That looks interesting. What are they asking for the house? As they're hanging out their car window. And I've had that happen before. And I'll tell them, we put it on the market for blah, blah, blah. And I've gotten the response of, oh, they're out of their frickin' minds. That's way too much money. I'll give them blah. And they throw a number out. And as a realtor, my responsibility is to tell the seller, hey, some guy drove by in a car and he shouted out this price. Of course, if somebody does that, my first question as a professional to that individual is going to be, are you serious? Do you want to put it in writing? Can I have your name and your contact information? I'll tell the seller. Can I have a way of getting in touch with you should they decide they want to move forward? Usually that stops the whole conversation right there. I'll get, oh, I was just kidding. That kind of thing. I'm not really interested. But because I've heard the verbal offer, I need to tell my seller, hey, somebody came by and they threw out this number. I just wanted to let you know. They weren't serious. They didn't want to put it in writing, but it was a verbal offer. The responsibility of the realtor is to present all offers that come in on the home. So whether they're just hearsay or they're in writing or they're verbal or whatever it might be, they want to tell the seller what's going on. As a buyer, you really need to look at what you're going to offer on the house. And is that feasible that the house is going to be worth that money? Because if you're financing, you're going to get appraisers and the bank and whatever involved in putting a mortgage on that home. So you can't get too crazy. Now, if you're a cash buyer, that can be a different story. Or if you're going to do cash and finance combination, that can be a different story. But you want to work with a realtor who's going to do a market analysis to tell you what the range is, what the values can be on that particular home, to kind of give you a guideline, because you don't want to pay too much, and then again, you don't want to pay too little. You're also not only trying to accomplish a deal for yourself, but you're also trying to get the seller to agree to that offer. So, you can't go out there and look at a number of different homes and just start throwing numbers out there willy-nilly. You can't, just say, oh, I'll do this on that home, but if I don't get that one, I'll do this on that home, and maybe I'll do this one. Or that looks like a good buy and offer, XYZ dollars less than what the asking price is and see if they go for it. No, you can't do that. You could, but a lot of realtors will say to you, no, that's not the way it works. You can't just go out and make an offer on one home and then go out and make an offer on another home, because what happens if both those sellers of those individual homes accept your offer? Now you become contractually obligated to buy two houses. Maybe that's not what you want to do. You want to make sure that when you're making that offer, that it's a fair price, that it's a good price, but it also has to be structured in a way that the seller's going to feel comfortable in accepting that offer. Now, what do I mean by structure? Well, it's not just the price that you're talking about here. You're talking about how you're going to pay or make that price. If you're financing, you need to be able to tell the seller on the purchase and sale agreement how you plan to finance the purchase. Are you getting a conventional loan? Are you getting a 203k rehab style loan? Are you going FHA? Are you buying cash? And what are the terms of the loan that you're planning to get? And when do you expect to lock up that loan? In other words, what's your commitment date going to be? I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to, buy the house for this, and I'm going to mortgage this amount, and I plan to have all that in place by XYZ date. That goes in the purchase and sale agreement, as well as the potential closing date. if I do this and if I get that and I can get my commitment by XYZ date, I want to close on this date, on or about. These are important things for the seller to look at, especially the closing potential date, because they may be buying another home. So now the realtor that's marketing the home that they wish to buy has to coordinate with their home being sold in order to close on that home, because they may need the proceeds to transfer over, right? So those two dates come into play. You're also looking at, I'm going to give this price on the house, but this price comes with some caveats. There are some conditions. If I'm going to purchase the home for this amount, and I'm going to try to secure a mortgage for this amount, I want to be able to do a series of inspections. On a future show, I'll get into what the inspections are, and I talked about that on one of the procedure shows. And again, these shows that I'm going over is kind of going through problems and concerns and challenges that happen during the purchase and sale process. When you're making an offer, you need to go in with a strong offer. It has to be structured in such a way where it's going to accomplish what it wants to do. Now, what do I mean by that? What does the offer accomplish? Well, first of all, it has to have enough structure in it to be appealing, to incentivize the seller to sign that offer. In other words, to accept it so that you have a binding contract between buyer and seller. It has to have in it what you're actually offering. You can't just say XYZ dollars. Where's that price coming from? How much are you going to be putting down? If you're financing, how are you financing it? For what term? At what potential rate? If you're going to do inspections, what kind of inspections do you want to do? When do you want to do those inspections? And so on and so forth. And most importantly, when you plan to have the mortgage commitment in place and when you would like to close. Now, sometimes when you're making the offer, your realtor may help you structure it for things that you might need in order for the deal to come together. One of the more common ones is closing costs. Buyers, one of the things that sometimes take you a little bit aback is how much it costs to close on a home. It's not just the down payment. There are a lot of things that are involved in the actual closing costs in order to get the title to transfer to you. And I will do a show on closing costs and get involved in what those potentially are. Those have to be factored in. And sometimes you're going to ask the seller in your offer, if I give you full price, full asking price for the home, I would like you to participate in some of my costs to close on it. So you might ask for a credit. And again, the realtors will help you structure your offer so that the verbiage is in the contract to be able to do that. There's also some new things that have popped up, and I want to just spend a moment to talk about that in the purchase of a home. Realtors now are not allowed to put the cooperating agreement in the multiple listing service on what the buyer's agent may be compensated when the house sells. Sellers now have the right to make a decision on whether or not they wish to pay the buyer's agent who's representing the buyer in the purchase of the home. And they may or they may not. Agents and realtors that represent buyers don't work for free. Let's be honest. If you went to your job and your boss said, I want you to work this week and you're not getting paid, but I want you to be here every day, I want you to give me 110%, I got extra things for you to do, and you're going to work extra hours and you're not getting paid for it. Well, unless you're a volunteer, we all go to work to make money. Realtors help people purchase homes, help people sell homes. That's their job. That's their livelihood. They need to be paid. They're not going to go out and just for the fun of it, go show you houses. No, they have to be compensated for that. And that's a discussion that you're going to have with your realtor when you decide to have a realtor represent you in the purchase of a home. How are they compensated? How much are they compensated? How does that compensation get paid? Are you, as the buyer, going to pay your realtor? You know, if you go in and you hire an attorney, it doesn't matter whether you're the one filing the lawsuit or defending yourself against the lawsuit. You still have to pay the attorney, right? So whether you're hiring a realtor to help you sell your home or whether you're hiring a realtor to help you buy a home, the realtor has to be compensated. So let's get back to the purchase and sale agreement. Sometimes, because of this new structure, a concession will be put in the offering agreement for the seller to be able to indirectly offer money to compensate the buyer's agent. Maybe the buyer is cash poor. They're really stretching on the purchase of the home and the things that they want to do, and they don't have that money to compensate their realtor. So it might be structured in the deal. The seller, when considering an offer, has to do their math. They got to see, well, here's what we asked, and here's what they're offering, and here's what the net offer would be for us to consider. Net is the difference between the offering price and subtracting out all the different credits or concessions. This is the bottom line. And does that bottom line number work for them before they go ahead and accept the contract? Sellers put themselves in the position when they're looking at a purchase and sale contract that they have to be able to look at the whole contract. What is this buyer actually telling me? What are they actually offering me? What is the net amount, as I just said? You know, are they asking for things right up front before we've even had a chance to talk about stuff? You know, what kind of risks do I have as a seller if I accept this particular purchase and sale agreement? Is this an offer that I as a seller can accept, that I feel confident the numbers are going to work for me and it's going to get to that closing table? As the buyer, you have to think, will this work for me, and am I able to afford what I'm asking the seller to accept? Now, the purchase and sale contract is also built in the verbiage to protect the buyer that's making the offer. I've had it said to me by buyers, you know, what if I make an offer on a home and the seller accepts the offer and all the terms, and we're marching along to a closing, and something happens. I lose my job. A disaster happens in the family. I'm buying the home in partnership with my spouse or a friend or a relative, and something happens to them. Can I get out of the contract? Can I cancel the purchase and sale agreement? Well, yes, you can. You can back out of a deal, as they call it. But there are some risks that are involved. First of all, there's good faith money that you've put down. And what that is, what good faith money is, that's what they call escrow money. That's the amount of money that you give when the seller accepts the contract. As good faith, you're going to follow through all the different steps to get to that closing. Now, that can be $500,000 or more. Realtors will advise you how much good faith money, how much money to give in escrow when you make your offer, and when that money actually goes to the escrow attorney or to the listing agency. That money, by the way, does not go directly to the seller. That money is put in an escrow account that all listing agencies have, and that money sits there untouched, safe, until you get to the closing table and it needs to exchange over to the seller. And the reason why it sits there is because, first of all, that's the rules and regulations. But second of all, if there's a problem and a deal falls apart for whatever reason, that money needs to be in a position to transfer back to the buyer. But it doesn't happen that simply. You see, once you give good faith money, that money goes into escrow and it cannot be returned to the buyer and it cannot be kept by the seller unless there is an agreement between the buyer and the seller as to what the disposition of that money is going to be. So if you needed to back out of a purchase and sale agreement, you have to have justifiable cause. You have to have a reason. You can't just say, I changed my mind, I don't want this house. That's not a justifiable reason. Because you see, when you make an offer as a buyer on a home, once the seller signs that offer, it becomes a binding agreement. The seller is agreeing to take their home off the market while they wait for you to do all the steps that you need to do to close on that home. Now, realtors a lot of times, they'll put a deposit on a home. They'll say it's deposit status, but they put that you can still show the house to other potential buyers, but they have to tell those other buyers that if they want to make an offer, it's what's considered backup position. In other words, the seller can't accept it because there is an offer in play. But again, you're asking the seller to take the home off the market. So sometimes sellers, if the house is getting a lot of viewings and there's a lot of people looking at the house and there's potential offers coming in, they may want that good faith money or that escrow money to be a lot higher than what was normally done in traditional paths. So you have to consider that. Is the good faith money your down payment money? No, it's not. You may be putting 5%, 10%, 20%, 40%, whatever it might be, down on the purchase of a home. And that's for mortgage purposes, right? The more money you put down, the less the mortgage is. But you're not going to give all that money up front in a good faith estimate or a good faith deposit or escrow money. You want to make sure that the monies you put up front are monies you're willing to lose should you decide to back out of a deal for whatever reason and the seller decide they want to keep that monies because they've had their home off the market and they feel it's fair for them to keep it. Obviously, attorneys are going to get involved, courts are going to get involved. A listing agency or an escrow agent cannot just sign the money over to a seller. There has to be a binding agreement between the buyer and the seller as to what the disposition of that money is going to be. Most of the time, if a justifiable reason's been given, the seller's going to say, yeah, give them the money back and we'll just put the house back on the market. Sometimes sellers will say, hey, my house was off the market for these last 2-3 weeks. I lost momentum. I want to be compensated for taking my house off the market. And they may agree that maybe they'll only refund half of that money. They may want to keep it all. But again, that's going to be decided by attorneys and by the courts. It's not decided by, the real estate agent or the realtor or the listing agent or the buyer agent. So it could be a long, drawn-out process. The challenge and the problem is if a seller decides not to give back that good faith money, the house still stays in play because they can't go on and remarket the house to someone else until the contract that they agreed to is terminated. And the contract will not be terminated unless a decision on the good faith money, that escrow money, has been made. So again, you've got to get attorneys involved and you have to talk to the realtor to really get a good sense of what happens with that money. So again, making a purchase, there's a lot that's involved. You need an expert to help guide you and give you advice as to what you're going to do. Looking for houses is fun. Seeing houses is fun. But when it comes to making that offer, it really starts to get serious. My name is Rick Naples, and this has been The Real Estate Show. I'll see you next time.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.
Host Kurt Barwis. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Andrew Lynn.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name's Chuck Wooden.
Decision for ourselves for this week, if we want to be made well.
Hi, welcome to the crack of dawn. It's Dawn Lombardi. I'm starting the painting. It's going to be the clips with some water. Love it.
He took me on the sets of Lost in Space, Batman.
Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time.